My life has been completely overturned by a conspiracy. I'm told my mate is one person, but a voice deep inside tells me my true love is someone else. Chapter 27. Waking up forests POV. I drifted in a sea of tranquility. I was safe. It was calm, relaxing, and nothing would ever hurt me. But my mate wasn't here with me. So it was hell. For days I floated, trying to find land, but unable to anchor. Lost at sea, lost in my own mind. For days I fought to get free, to escape and wake up. I could feel her. I could feel Arya. But something wasn't right. I shouldn't be able to feel her. We hadn't completed the bond yet. She didn't wear my mark on her neck and I didn't wear hers. Even though I was still half asleep. Even though I could barely think. I could feel pain throbbing through me. Her pain. She was in pain. As I slowly woke up more, I started to process the information flooding through my senses. I could smell antiseptic, the undertone of strong bleach. My nose wrinkled at the smell. It was too clean, too fake. I must be in hospital. The pack hospital most likely. I could smell the scent of pack wolves. Slowly the events of the attack came back to me. The rogues knew where we would be. They must have. It was an organized attack. They knew where to attack and when. They knew the perfect way to bring us to our knees. The pack was defenseless without its alpha family. We had a traitor, and mark my words, they would pay dearly for it. I could smell my parents close by, in beds next to me, but I couldn't smell Arya. She wasn't here. Not even faintly. She should be here. She should be here for when I wake up. She's my mate. But she wasn't here. Over the next few hours, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I really couldn't tell. My senses woke up more. I could hear the faint sound of footsteps outside my door. I could hear the sound of whispered conversations. They had caught the traitor. I heard pack wolves talking about it. The traitor who was responsible for the rogue attack. They had been collared up and the pack was waiting for us to wake up before they were dealt with. Good. I wanted to deal with this traitor myself. More time passed as I fought with myself to wake up. I would wake up and I would deal with the traitor. Together with my family. We would make an example of the traitor to show we don't allow that sort of treachery, no matter your status. I could feel my parents waking up as well. Their blood humming with power. Breathing life back into them as mine did the same to me. I felt stronger. I knew I could almost escape. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Time ticked on. Day turned to night and I fought through my mind, fighting to be free, fighting to be out. And finally, my fight paid off. I opened my eyes, not caring about the blinding light or the searing pain making me want to curl up and go back to sleep. I just wanted to be home. I slowly stood up and walked over to where my father lay, leaning on the wall for support. Slowly he blinked his eyes open, groaning as he sat up, closely followed by my mum. Well, that was hell. Looking over to me and then my mum. Call Ash and his parents. See if they can come fill us in on what we missed. My dad said, straight down to business. Like always, I grabbed out my phone, calling Ash, tapping my foot impatiently as I waited. Something was wrong with Arya and I was going to find out. Hello. Ash's groggy voice called from the other side. Who is it? I smiled at that. Leave it to Ash to not check the caller ID. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Ignoring the gasp from the other side of the line. Can you come here and fill us along what we missed? Bring your parents to. Not waiting for an answer. I hung up, grabbing some clothes and going to get changed out of the horrible hospital gowns. Back in my own clothes I felt much better. I had mainly healed from the attack while being unconscious. Back in the hospital room my parents had also got changed. They were talking about what had happened at the attack. so I filled them in on what I heard. Some pack wolves were saying they had found the traitor. They collared up on the hill for us to deal with. Do we know who the traitor is? My mum asked, coming over to me and giving me a hug. Her wolf coming forward slightly to check her pup was okay. I shook my head. Maybe Ash will know. They didn't say a name. We'll find out soon though, when we deal with the traitor. Just then Sky and Ash's parents came in the door, all smiling seeing us awake. We thought we'd lost you for a minute there, Ollie said, giving me a hug. I hugged her back before asking the question we all wanted to know the answer to. Who's the traitor? Looking round the room, my parents coming over, wanting to know the answer as much as me. Sky and Ash looking down at the ground, while Ollie and Albert looked out the window. No one knows, Ash said, quietly, looking sad. I looked over to my parents, them looking as confused as I was. That's bullshit. We do know. I looked over to see who was speaking. It was one of the guards. The one Arya was speaking to the day she had her sensory overload. It seemed like such a long time ago now. A long time since I've seen Arya. I looked over at him. Lewis, what do you mean? My mum asked, confusion written on her face. Have we caught the traitor or not? No, Ash. Sky. Ollie and Albert all say at the same time as Lewis says, yes. Lewis looked over at the others. If we haven't found the traitor, then who is collared at the top of the hill? Just because you don't want to admit you were wrong. Seeing my confused look, he turned to me. We have found the traitor and we are waiting for you to deal with her. So it's a female, I say slowly, watching them all nod their heads. I turned to Ash. Why do you say no? She's not the traitor. I know she's not. We all know she's not. But no one would listen to us. Backed by Sky and his parents nodding. As the sun started to rise, my dad finally asked the question to solve everything. Who is it? Who is, or isn't the traitor? She isn't, Sky quickly said before allowing Lewis to say who it was. Who else would betray the pack except a rogue? The rogue who distracted us. So the reinforcements didn't come as quickly as they could. The rogue who you adopted and brought into the pack only to turn her back on you and stab you in the back. It took me a few seconds to process what he meant. The rogue we adopted. We didn't adopt a rogue. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I turned to Ash. I tried to stop them. They were so sure it was her. She's been collared all week. The pack have been attacking her while she can't protect herself. They wanted to kill her. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I walked over to the door, nearly pulling it off its hinges to get out quicker, closely followed by my parents, Ash and Sky. I looked at the hill close the pack hospital, and at the top I could see the figure of a wolf, huddled to the ground, looking beaten up and tired, but even from here I could tell it was Arya. I threw myself up the hill, reaching her in the blink of an eye, not waiting for the key, not wanting her to be in the vile contraption a second longer. I ripped the collar of her neck, not caring as the silver burnt my skin, catching her as she fell, too weak to keep herself up. By the time the other reached, I had her cradled to me, bridal style. As I looked her over for injury, which wasn't hard to find, she whimpered as I moved, wincing in pain as her wounds rubbed against my shirt. She was freezing, the silver shoving her wolf down while the bitter wind blew over the ground. I placed a kiss on her forehead and held her closer to me, sharing my heat with her. What happened? I growled out. Why did this happen? Ash explained what had happened, while we were out of it while I carried Daria home. I let this happen. I should have protected her better. While we walked home, Arya had passed out, so I had tucked her in our bed and gone downstairs. My wolf didn't want me to leave her. I didn't want to leave her. But I needed to hear the full story, and we needed a way to prove Arya wasn't the traitor, and she wasn't rogue before the pack killed her. After an hour we were no closer to finding an answer. We knew what had happened. We knew why the pack blamed her. But proving her innocent was drawing a blank. Suddenly Ash ran in. Sky and his parents had gone home while we worked on our plan. The pack have noticed Arya isn't chained. They want to know where she's gone. Technically, whatever you do, the pack has to know. My parents nodded. Turning to me they said, "We'll deal with this. Go spend some time with your mate." I smiled before running up the stairs. Not bothering to get changed, I slid into bed, pulling Arya close to me, and even though I had been asleep for a week, I felt myself drifting to sleep. Just before sleep pulled me into its sweet embrace, I saw a flash and the click of a camera. I was asleep before it registered what happened. Tyler's POV. I walked into my house and straight to the sitting room. Dad was already there as well as the rest of the rebel group. Overall there were about 20 of us, some who I convinced to join, like Tasha, some who came from the pack where the bitch stayed, like Lewis, and some who just liked watching the world burn. I was only a part of the group to destroy my sister. She's made my life hell for as long as I can remember, and soon it'll be my turn. The rest of the group also had motives, although different from mine. I didn't need to know what they wanted. I just knew we all needed something from the pack where my sister stayed. Unaware of the threat coming, the meeting started off smoothly. News came to the front first. The pack doesn't trust the girl. They believe she's the traitor, like planned, and hopefully we can get to her soon. We talked through the plan, how to get to her. We had already decided when she was at school would be the easiest since she still went to the human school. Only Forrest would be able to stop us, and if he was outnumbered there would be nothing he could do. We had decided to leave it a few days, making sure school was hell for her, before grabbing her, mainly because it would give us longer to get ready for when she arrived. Tasha came over to me, smirking as she sat down. I talked to the people at school. The next few days will be hell for her. I've made sure of it. I smiled at her. She did a good job. By the end of this, Arya will be begging to come with us. I grinned. Soon I would watch my sister's perfect life crash down, and I couldn't think of anything I have ever wanted more. He took some pictures from his bag, putting them down on the table before turning back to the group. She is staying in a house on the edge of the territory with the Alpha family and her mate. The disgust in his voice as he said the word mate echoed the disgust I was feeling. I'm up like I didn't deserve a mate. We managed to get Nathaniel to the house without being found by the patrols, and he got close to her while she was chained without anyone stopping him. After seeing her for a while, he has decided to help us, so please welcome the newest member of our group, Nathaniel, a very strong witchy specialist in hypnosis. He will help us stop her escape and make her life hell, not only by taking her free will from her, but also by giving her such night and day mares she starts to question reality, making it easier to convince her to stay. He was also going to turn my dad into a werewolf, one derived from magic, dark magic, one who would be able to take down that pathetic pack and rule them, ruin them, destroy them. I nodded to Nathaniel, unable to remove the smile from my lips. Soon she would be in the palm of my hands. I couldn't wait to hear her scream as I watched her blood run onto the floor. The thought of it gave me shivers of excitement. I can't wait. The pictures were passed to Simon, who was going to Photoshop them. By the time we were done, not even she would know what was real and what we made up. What better way to confuse her than to make her believe Forrest was someone else? Make her believe it wasn't Forrest she spent the last few months with. Make her believe Forrest wasn't, and never was, her mate. Simon took them and in his bag before grinning in excitement, looking over to me. I chose Simon from all the options, and let me tell you, there were lots of options. My sister seemed to be quite enticing to the wolves in the group, because he was the hardest hearted, the most ruthless, the best one to make her scream. And how she would scream. Chapter 28, Be careful what you wish for Arya's POV. I woke up in the middle of the night sweating. I couldn't remember my dream, only that the guard was in it, and so was the man who was always watching me. They were grinning madly, smugly, as if they knew something I didn't. I lay in bed for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling, trying to calm my racing heart. Forrest stirred from beside me, turning over to look at me as he blinked open his eyes. "Hey Arya, it's okay. Did you have a nightmare?" Looking concerned while wiping the tears I didn't realize had fallen from my eyes. I nodded as he pulled me closer, kissing the top of my head. "It's okay. It was just a dream. You're safe." I curled up closer into him, breathing in his calming scent as he stroked my hair. My mate. He always kept me safe. He didn't mind staying up in the middle of the night because I'd had a nightmare. I loved him, and I was ready to tell him. I looked up at him, looking him in the eye before saying the 3 words I knew I meant to the bottom of my soul. "I love you." His eyes wide, and before he smiled, a soft smile of true happiness. "I love you too. You are my world, and I'm so happy I found you," he said before leaning forward and kissing me sweetly. Forrest was kissing me. My first kiss, and it couldn't be more perfect. After what felt like forever, but also not long enough, we pulled apart. "Come on, Arya. We have school later. You need to sleep." I lay my head on Forrest's chest, smiling happily before letting sleep consume me. "I love you, Forrest." I whispered, and the last thing I heard before I fell fully asleep was, "I love you, Arya." Our final week out of school had been spent, for Forrest unconscious, and for Mikala to a pole. So not the best holiday of our lives, and as happy as I was to be out of the collar, I wished I didn't have to go back to school. I woke up a few minutes before the alarm went off, and although getting up did cross my mind, I decided my time would be better spent catching the final seconds of peacefulness. I smiled to myself. I was back where I belonged. I turned over looking at Forrest, his eyes cloaked by his eyelid, hiding the stress which seemed to follow him around nowadays. Mainly my fault. I wished I could freeze time, stay in this moment forever. The calm, the warmth, the safety of my mate's arms. Forrest's eyes slowly blinked open, and he sleepily smiled at me, yawning and pulling me closer to him, leaning down and kissing my forehead. I missed this. Then, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The moment was ruined by the obnoxiously loud alarm blaring in my ear. I groaned and threw my pillow over my face. Forrest laughed at me before turning off the alarm. "Come on, we need to get up for school." Pulling me closer to him, giving me a quick kiss on the lips before dragging me out of bed. I screamed as the cold air hit me before chasing Forrest down the stairs, yelling death threats. I ran into the kitchen to see a very confused-looking Atlas and a very amused-looking Ela. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Shaking her head at him. "What did I tell you about dragging people out of bed in the morning?" Forrest laughed slightly before replying, "Don't do it, because one day it's going to get me killed." I smirked at that. "One day very soon," I said before Atlas distracted me by placing a plate of waffles in front of me. I thanked him before digging in, trying to ignore the fact I had to go back to school today. All too soon, though, we were driving up to the school car park. There was no escaping this, but at least Forrest was beside me and Tyler was nowhere in sight. As I walked the corridors to my first lesion, I could hear every whisper, every jab, every insult, and for the first time in weeks I cursed you for being a werewolf. I slowly made my way to first lesson. Everyone was looking at me as if I was rubbish beneath their feet. As I reached the door to my classroom, someone came up behind me and shoved me, causing me, and my books, to go flying. Everyone laughed. Nothing had changed. Things had just got worse. So much worse. First lesson was food, and we had a supply teacher. We were cooking a Swiss roll. I had been looking forward to it for ages, and yet, as I stood here in the middle of the classroom, covered in egg, flour and cake mix, I really wished I had just skipped school. Some bright little so-and-so thought it would be a good idea to purposefully trip me up while carrying a bowl of cake mixture. Then someone else had the bright idea, instead of putting eggs in the mixture, let's pelt eggs at the bullied girl. And of course, if someone is covered in liquid lime mixtures, What better thing to do than break a bag of flour over their heads? Safe to say, even though my brother no longer came to this school, his influence and the black spot he had put over my name still dictated the school. After the little incident in first lesson, I then had to spend the rest of the day in soaking wet clothes. I didn't actually see Forrest until last lesson maths. I had been given a lunchtime detention in food for messing about, and at break I had to go to English to catch up on some of the work I'd missed. All my other lessons seemed to be the other side of the school from Forrest. I didn't see him the whole day, not even a glance, until maths. All day people had been jeering at me, calling me names, calling me a slut, a whore and a good-for-nothing son of a bitch, which didn't work because I'm a girl, but, you know, whatever floats your boat. I had been tripped more times than I could count between lesions, and the teachers didn't do anything. They just laughed too. It made me wonder, what did my brother say about me? What could he say to turn the whole school against me? The teachers who were usually so nice, even the students who usually left me alone, were laughing, smirking, pushing and punching me. As soon as I threw myself down in my seat, Forrest gave me his jumper, not asking for an explanation of why I was covered in egg, flour and cake mix, knowing I would almost defiantly tell him later. I was very grateful for his jumper. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Cake mix and flour don't dry well when mixed together, and so all day I have been damp and cold. I couldn't get alcohol quick enough. It was so much worse than when I'd last been to school. I thought it was hell then. It's so much worse now. While I was waiting in the car park for Forrest, people were walking past me, pelting me with insults and rocks. Even the teachers. I had never felt so alone in my life. Even though my brother wasn't there. Even though I had nearly pushed my brother and dad out of my mind, out of my life, their actions still affected me. I just wanted to stop it, but I didn't know how. As soon as we reached home, I ran up the stairs, not looking back or saying hello to Atlas or Ela. I flew through the house, grabbing some clothes and leaping into the shower. As I stood there, water beating around me, I finally let go. I crumpled to the floor and cried. Why did it have to happen like that? What did I ever do to them? Why did everyone hate me? I was quiet and hardworking. I never messed about in class. And yet even my teachers seemed to hate me. I could hear someone climbing the stairs. So I quickly tried to stop crying. If they knew I had been crying, they'd want to know why. As I walked downstairs, I could feel their gazes on me. They wanted to know why I'd ran off. And Forrest wanted to know how I ended up cake and cake mix. How was your day? Ida asked, looking concerned. I shrugged and made my way to sit next to Forrest on the sofa. It could have gone worse, I said before turning to Forrest, although someone tripped while carrying their cake mix in food and spilt it all on me. I laughed, hoping they would think it was an accident and see the funny side, hoping they wouldn't realize how upset I was over it. Forrest didn't look convinced, but he slowly nodded, although he didn't laugh. Are you sure you're okay? I nodded. I'm fine. I didn't want to burden them with my problems. They took me into their lives, and all I've caused was problems. I couldn't tell them. I would just have to suck it up. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I've had worse. For the rest of the week it just got worse. When Forrest was around, people were nice to me, smiling and being kind. But as soon as Forrest left for his lessons, the nice would turn horrid. Everyone seemed to delight in tripping me up, punching and kicking, and no one ever stopped them. No one. By the time Friday came, I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and I just wanted to get out of this school, whatever it took. As the bell rang and Forrest walked into his classroom, I wandered down the halls, slowly making my way to my lesson. As I walked to my classroom, I noticed how empty the halls were, and I wished I could just miss school, get out of this hellhole and return a completely different person. Hello, Arya, a voice behind me said, and that is when I learnt the true meaning of be careful what you wish for, because wishes don't always come true in the way you might hope. Eventually gravity will always pull you down. You can't high without a fall. Chapter 29. Meeting him. Arya's POV. I turned around at the sound of his voice. What was he doing here? No, no, no. No, please. I begged. Leave me alone. My brother just laughed. He continues walking towards me, a smirk plastered on his face. I inched back, keeping as much distance between me and him. I felt the cold metal of the lockers as I backed into them, hoping they would swallow me up and get me away from him. No such luck. He continued towards me as I pressed my back into the lockers. Behind him were a load of his goon, his boffins. They backed him up, making sure I didn't escape. They all were matching grins, smug smiles of satisfaction. They knew they had won. Tyler raised his hand to slap me. I flinched away, waiting for the inedible pain, but it never came. I looked up to see Forrest standing in front of me, protecting me from my brother. What are you doing here, Tyler? He growled out, blocking him from getting to me. Well, you see, Forrest, I've just missed my delightful sister Sue oh much. I just had to come visit her. I thought I'd take her back with me, my brother said sarcastically before laughing like a maniac. Forrest snarled at him. You aren't having her. You will never lay your hand on her again. My brother just laughed more. We'll see. He turned to his disgusting friends. Attack. No sooner were the words out his mouth before they all flew into action, outnumbering Forrest and me about 7,000 to 1. Well, not quite. But still, we couldn't shift in the corridors of school, so we had to fight hand to hand. The men easily overpowered me, holding me by my neck against the lockers. I struggled, trying to get out of their grip. Keyword. I was helpless as I watched Forrest get overwhelmed by the sheer number of goons all attacking at once. Only one was needed to hold me hostage, so all the others were free to beat Forrest to a pulp. They got him onto the floor after a long struggle, punching him everywhere. His neck. I could see him start to fade away. He sent one last helpless glance to me. I'll always find you, he said before the fight went away from him and he lay limp. Even once he was unconscious, they didn't stop. Punching and kicking. The sound of breaking bones like a foghorn in the silent corridor. The silence only broken by my pleas. Please. He hasn't done anything to you. Let him go. My brother walked slowly over to me. You see him? I nodded. He'll live. As a final present to you. See how generous I am. Remember it. You owe me now. With that he stuck me in the neck with a needle and my world went black. I woke up in a cold, bare cell. I was confused, groggy from whatever drug they injected me with, and angry. I wanted to rip my brother's throat out. Sadly, I was restrained with silver handcuffs, so all ideas of murder were thrown out the window. For the time being anyway, my wolf had been worn down by the silver. I was alone. I was yanked out of my thoughts by the arrival of the 3 people I hate most in the world. Tasha came in scowling. You stole Forrest from me. Now he's all mine. Like it should be. My brother came in smirking. I can't wait to watch your world burn. By the time I'm done with you, it won't matter if your family save you or not. You won't be the same person who we kidnapped. My dad came in full out laughing. You can fight us all you like, but we've already won. Soon you won't even remember your old life. You will be completely and utterly at our control. I snarled at them. That's never going to fucking happen. I'll never stop fighting you. Forrest will come for me and I will end your pathetic life. My dad just tucked at me. Language. Language. We're just here to introduce you to someone today. This is Simon. The man who walked in the cell was lanky and tall, with shoulder length, blonde greasy hair and dull grey eyes. As unlike Forrest as possible. Oh, she is hot. You're right. Looking at my body. Not me. Yes, she will suit me perfectly. Definitely worth the money I paid you for her. Anytime Forrest talked to me, he talked to me, but Simon only talked to my body. He acted like I was a possession he owned. He strutted over to me. getting into my personal space. I shoved him away. Shut the fuck up. I'm not yours and I never will be. Oh, her mouthy little thing, isn't she? He said to my dad. We'll have to do something about that, won't we? Can't have a woman who speaks her mind. I need an obedient trophy. Not a open-eyed little girl. My dad just smirked. We'll help you beat it out of her. Then she'll be all yours to have your way with her. Just think of it as a project. We will customize her to your preferences and soon you will have a custom-made girl. Simon nodded. They were talking as if I wasn't even there. I swear on all the skies in heaven I'll never give in to them. If they think I will ever stop fighting, they have another thing coming. He turned to me, but he still didn't look at me. Only my body. Soon you will be mine, and we will have such fun. You will be begging to be mine. Body, mind and soul. He leaned forward, trying to kiss me. I shoved him away, as if I would ever give myself to him. Forrest is the only man I will ever love. I will never be his. He laughed as I shoved him. Plenty of time for that later. He said before walking out the cell. We will be back tomorrow. And we will be bringing a friend. Your treatment will start tomorrow. He yelled from over his shoulder. My dad left with him. But Tyler and Tasha stayed. You know Tasha? My brother said. I think we need to teach this bitch a lesson. Tasha nodded and they both came towards where I sat. Before I could react, punches were raining down on me. All I felt was pain as they hit me, kicked me, breaking bones and leaving bruises. All too soon I felt the well-known darkness creeping up on me. Forrest's POV. I woke up to the sound of beeping and the smell of a hospital. A human hospital. I opened my eyes with a wince. Looking around me, I saw my mum sitting by my bedside. Although she was so lost in thought I doubted she actually saw the wall her gaze was fixed on. As I remembered what had happened, Tyler, his attack, the pain, I grew more and more concerned for my mate. Mum, I said, waking her out of her daze. She looked at me and pulled me into a tight hug. I felt pain erupt from where she squeezed, but I barely noticed. I was worried about Arya, and I could feel my mum's wolf. She was on edge. Something was very wrong. Mum, where's Arya? She pulled away from me slightly, tears running down her cheeks. We don't know. Someone heard a commotion outside their classroom and went to check it out. You lay beat up on the floor, but no one else was there. Your dad is looking, but we have no idea. What happened? I had my eyes squeezed shut. No, this couldn't be happening. She's gone. My wolf howled out. He slunk to the back of my mind, consumed by his grief. I knew who had her. I turned to my mum. I had just sat down in class when my wolf started howling at me, telling me Arya was in danger. I said I had to go to the bathroom and ran to Arya's class. As I reached it, her brother was there. He attacked us. There were too many of them. I lost consciousness before I saw what they did with Arya. But I bet they have her. My mum nodded. Straight to business. She was already thinking about how to get Arya back. So was I. She was my world. I had to get her back. As soon as possible, my mum got me discharged from the hospital. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but it takes ages to be discharged. I swear I saw almost every doctor and nurse in the whole hospital. It was taking up precious time. Every second longer at the hospital was a second longer my mate was with those horrible people. The police wanted a statement, but I just said I didn't remember what happened and went home. We weren't going to get the police involved with this. It would just slow us down. Apparently, murder is illegal. My dad met me by the door to our house. He gave me a hug before promising we would find Arya. I just nodded in response and ran up to his office where we tried to figure out where they could be hiding. We didn't know if they had wolves involved with kidnapping Arya. Heck, we barely knew why they kidnapped her except to kill her, which didn't sound quite right. There must be something we're missing. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nolben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Looking up from the map, why kidnap her just to kill her? If they wanted her out of their life, why bring her back in? My dad nodded in agreement while my mum rubbed my back. I don't know why they took her, But we'll get her back. I promised her I'd always find her. And I don't break promises. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest, howling your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. This was one promise I couldn't break. My whole life rested in the balance and I refused to let her fall. I would catch her. Chapter 30, The Truth Arias POV. I woke to the sound of a door opening. I wasn't in the cell. I seemed to be in some sort of hospital bed. The walls around me were white. So were the covers of the bed I lay in. Everything was white. So white it hurt my head. I was hooked up to a machine and had a bandage around my head. I had a big headache and I was so confused. I looked up to see Tyler and my father enter the room. Tyler pulled a chair up to my bedside, taking my hand in his. I quickly pulled away and he let go, looking hurt. My father sat on the end of my bed. Simon had to step out a minute. He didn't want to leave your side. He was so worried about you. Wiping tears from the edge of his eyes. We were all so worried about you. The doctor wasn't sure if you would ever wake up. What was he doing? He didn't care about me. None of them did. He kidnapped me. He sold me. Sold my body to Simon. The whole reason I was unconscious was because Tyler beat me until I fainted. I sneered. As if. Stop acting. I know you. You abused me. You hate me. You were worried about me. You kidnapped me. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest, howling your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Breathing heavily as fear and anger clouded my vision. Now leave me the fuck alone. I want you out of my life. My brother looked shocked. And sad. I didn't have long to dwell on it before Simon came running in. Tara, you're awake. Thank God. I was so worried about you, baby. He threw his arms around me, putting me into a tight hug. I shoved him away and he fell off the bed. I don't know what you're trying, but don't. It's not going to work. I have a mate. I will never be yours. Just leave me alone. My father approached me, slowly, as if I was a wild animal. Hey, Terrell, it's okay. You hit your head. Do you remember what happened? Of course I remember what happened. You turned up to my school, beat my mate. I turned to Simon, my real mate, and then beat me until I fell unconscious. They all looked confused, but it was Tyler who answered. Terrell, that's not what happened. I hated the look they were giving me, as if I didn't know what was going on, and almost as if they cared, but they don't care. I can't forget that. Why do you keep calling me Tara? My name is Aria. Learn how to use it. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest, howling your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Annoyed and still slightly confused. Your name is Tara. My dad said. 6 months ago you fought some mercs. They captured you and beat you until you were unconscious before they threw you off a cliff and left you for dead. We found you, but you've been in a coma ever since. Simon is your mate. Everyone looks sincere, but I couldn't trust them. It wouldn't be the first time they tried to trick me. Simon stood up and tried to hug me again, but I just shoved him away. I'll get the doctor, he said before walking out the room. The doctor came in and introduced himself as Nathaniel. He shined bright lights in my eyes and took me into a machine to scan my brain before taking me back to the room with my loving family in it. It seems Tara sustained brain damage when she was attacked by the rogues and therefore can't remember you. Her memories may return in time, however. They may never return. Looking at a screen that showed the results of the brain scan, Simon still looked conflicted. He was sitting as close to me as I'd allow, which was as far away from me as possible without him complaining. Why does she think she has a different mate? Why does she think she has a different family? The doctor considered his answer before opening his mouth. When she was in a coma, she will have been dreaming. Dreaming for long enough will make it feel real, because she couldn't remember the details of her life. The brain filled the gaps with the things she could remember. Books she may have read and the sounds she heard while in a coma. Her mate may very well be non-existent, or he could be someone who walked past her. I hated the way they all looked at me. They looked concerned. They acted concerned. They talked as if they knew and cared for me. But I knew they didn't. The last few months with Forrest wasn't my imagination. The years of abuse and neglect wasn't a dream. "Do you need anything?" Simon asked. I just ignored him. I knew I was right. I knew it wasn't a dream. They were acting, and I wouldn't let them trick me. I just sat there plotting my escape. I couldn't have gone far. I would just run and find Forrest. I had to at least try. As night drew near, the doctor sent Simon. Tyler anyway, saying I needed to rest. Simon tried to kiss me as he left, but I turned my head and ignored him. My brother and I tried to say bye. I just stared at the wall, not letting them see the satisfaction of me trusting them. I wouldn't fall their trap. The doctor, Nathaniel, gave me some medication to help with my memories, apparently, and looked in my eyes again. His eyes seemed to flash for a second, but it was probably just the light reflecting. As soon as he left, I climbed out the window. I quietly ran away from the hospital. Along the road, I remembered. I was close to the pack. It was only a few minutes' walk from Forrest's house. Home. I ran as fast as I could. I would be safe soon. I would be home soon. I nearly cried as I saw the house in front of me. Home. I ran to the front door, pounding on it and ringing the doorbell. Desperation making me impatient. I couldn't wait to be back in bed. My bed, surrounded by the comforting arms of my mate. My mate, not Simon. They tried to trick me, but I know what's true. The door cracked open to reveal a tired-looking Forrest. In the blink on, and I had thrown myself into his arms. I cried out, hugging him tight, but he didn't hug me back. "I think you're confused. I don't know you." I felt my heart plummet. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Between my sobs, before of joy, now of fear, he was looking at me as if I was a maniac. "I think you better come in." Opening the door wider and leading me into the sitting room. Ira. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I cried out, "Tell him, tell Forrest." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I turned to Forrest. "I'm your mate." They all looked at me as if I was mad. "My name isn't Atlas." Atlas said. I nodded, confused. "You took me in when my dad was abusing me. You looked after me." He just shook his head. "My name is Osiris. This is my mate Eula. And my son." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. "Are you okay, Arya? You seem confused and you're wearing a hospital nightgown. Do you need us to take you back?" I shook my head. "What's going on? Why don't my family recognize me?" Not Forrest was staring at me as if I was mad, which I must be because he looked so much like my mate. And yet he said he wasn't. "I think we should, for her own good." Not Eula. Eula said. Not Atlas. Osiris nodded. "We'll take her back now." They led me to the car and opened the door. I was in a daze. I was confused. They were my family, but also not. "Are you okay? You seem a bit spaced out." Not Forrest. Aaron asked. I shook my head. Why would I be okay? I can't remember my own me. Everything I thought I knew, apparently I didn't. I am far from okay. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I was so confused. I was lost. When we entered the hospital, Nathaniel ran up to me. "Oh, Tara, we were all so worried about you." Aaron looked confused. She introduced herself as Arya. "Is she okay?" Nathaniel smiled sadly. leading me back to my room. Did she say you were her mate as well? He asked, looking at Aaron knowingly. He nodded. She's been in a coma for 6 months, and has suffered considerably brain trauma. She's very confused. She's been reunited with her real mate but doesn't recognize him. Let's hope she heals with time. Eula nodded her head. Well then, all the best recovering Tara. I hope things turn out better for you soon. With that she grabbed Aaron and Osiris and walked out the doors. I was so confused and just sat on my bed trying to process everything. My mate isn't Forrest. Forrest is called Aaron. Ali is Eula and Atlas is Osiris. They aren't my parents. They've never met me before. But what about my wolf? I haven't heard from her since I woke up. It must be false. I know you're lying, I said to Nathaniel. He looked confused before smiling at me. Why is that? What am I lying about? I smiled smugly at him. My wolf isn't here. You're blocking her, so she doesn't tell me who my mate is. This is all some sort of sick act you're all playing to try to make me trust the monsters. Nathaniel looked at me. No hint of fear in his face. Only pity. I'm not lying. Your wolf is healing you. But I assure you when she's back she will only prove the fact that Simon is your mate. I can give you some medication to help you heal and to help your wolf come back. I nodded. Anything to help me find the truth. He handed me a bottle of about 10 small, circular pills. Take 2 a day. It will also help with your memory, so keep taking them until the bottle runs out. I nodded. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Take 1 now, he said, handing me one. I took it and swallowed it down. Before Nathaniel left, I stood up and started pacing the room. What was wrong with this place? What was wrong with me? A few minutes after taking the medication, the first memory hit. The memory of when I first met Simon. I had been walking in town with my brother and dad. We'd be walking around having a lovely time when I suddenly saw the most wonderful person ever. I knew straight away they were my mate. I had loved him ever since. It all made sense. My father and brother loved me. I loved them. My mate was called Simon. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I loved him. I had never met Eula before, or Aaron or Osiris. Why would I have? My name is Tara. Where had Arya even come from? I don't know anyone called Arya. I didn't know why everything had suddenly become much clearer. It just had. In that moment I was 1% sure. How could I have not recognized my own mate and thinking my loving brother and father could ever hurt me? I can't believe I ever thought bad of them like that. Any of them. How could I not have seen it before? The medication Nathaniel gave me really works. It helped me remember who I was. I just hope if I continue taking it, more of my past was sin, that ridiculous dream will go away. Soon. My life will be perfect. I will be back living with my mate. My wonderful mate. How could I have pushed him away like that? How could I have shouted at them all? I was so confused. So wrong. I just hope they forgive me. Chapter 31. My life within Taro's POV. I spent the rest of the night crying quietly to myself. I knew who my mate was now, but I was so confused. It felt so real. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Eula. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I still loved them, still cared for them, though they didn't know who I was. They didn't even exist. No, I have to stop acting like they are real. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Eula. They don't exist. My brain just heard their voices and made them up. They are called Aaron, Osiris and Eula, they know nothing about me. I have to move on, not only for my sake, but for my mate, Simon. It's selfish of me, just because I can't remember him. He's still my mate. He's still the one person who loves me the most in this world. The door creaked open and in skipped Tasha. Skipped. Tasha. Skipped. She yelled, throwing her arms around me. I thought you'd never wake up. I looked at her, confused by her sudden change in attitude. You hate me. Why are you being nice to me? Her eyes dropped as my words registered in her head. Simon told me about this. That was your dream. I'm your best friend. Don't you remember me? I shook my head. I'm your best friend. I'll tell you all about your life when you get out the hospital. I nodded again, hugging her back. She was right. It was all a dream. I need to move on with my life. After a few more hours, Nathaniel told me I was free to go home. I left with Simon, him making sure I had everything I needed with my pills and a reminder to take to a day. It would make me feel better. I happily sat in the car. I couldn't wait to get back home and learn more about my life with my mate. As we drove home, I looked at the rows around me. So many of them had been in my dream. I had been this way so many times with Forrest, Sky and Ash. No, I have to stop thinking like that. They were a dream. Even if Sky and Ash are real, they are oblivious to my existence. Not the friends I knew. My wolf was confused. She couldn't tell if Simon was our mate or not. She felt a connection to him, but she also felt a connection to Forrest. Even if he wasn't real, I was confused as well. Last night everything seemed so simple. I couldn't remember it, but I just knew. But now, it was as if the glass had clouded back up. Last night my wolf had known Simon was our mate. Not she was less sure. Something didn't seem right. Did you take your pills this morning? Simon asked, breaking me out of my thoughts with a concerned smile. I shook my head. You have to. It'll help you remember. He handed me one of the pills and I threw my head back, swallowing it in one. I stared out the window, trying to figure out what was going on. Was he my mate? Then, suddenly, I stopped doubting it again. I knew. Everything was certain. I don't know why I ever doubted him. I don't know what's been happening. I don't know why I thought Simon wasn't my mate. Of course he was. Do you feel better? Simon asked, looking at me, a knowing smirk on his lips. I smiled back, nodding. He pulled the car into a driveway. We're home. He pulled me to his side, hugging me tight. Part of me wanted to pull away. The other part wanted to pull his closer to me. As I climbed out the car, I whacked my head on the door. Shit, I exclaimed, rubbing my head. I looked over to Simon. He was looking at me with a disapproving frown. Language? Walking away. Tyrrell, he sharply said when I didn't follow. Come here. I jogged over to him, walking by his side. Simon got me into the house. Our house. And settled into a chair, saying I need to rest. I pulled him down, though he was sitting next to me, pulling him close. What was I like? Before, what were we like? He smiled at me. We were, and still are, totally in love. You are my sun, my moon and my entire galaxy. I will wait as long as it takes for you to remember me. I will always love you. Just then someone knocked on the door. Sighing, Simon walked over to open it, revealing Nathaniel on the other side, smiling apologetically. I need to check on your head again. You suffered severe brain trauma and amnesia, so I may need to come regularly. Just a precaution. I nodded. Nathaniel seemed to wink at Simon when I looked away, and he had a look on his face I couldn't decipher. Nathaniel shone a light in my eyes, and the light reflected back at his, giving his eyes a yellow glow. Just for a second. Then it was gone, and he was leaving, saying he'd be back soon. Simon pulled me closer to him. I hope you remember me soon. I wish our plans had worked out that night. Before I could ask him what he meant, I was overtook by a wave of tiredness. I nestled into his chest as he pulled me close to him. Sleep. You need to rest. I'll be here when you wake up. So I did. I woke up to my wolf purring in contentment. Simon was holding me tight. I sighed in contempt. I loved my mate. I'd had a dream about our life. It wasn't a dream. It was a memory. It was a memory of that night, the night Simon had been talking about. We had been together for years, ever since I was 15 and he was 17. I had always known about werewolves. My mother was one, but my father and brother weren't. It just so turned out I was as well. He wanted to mark me when we first met. But when I explained to him I was only 15 and wanted to wait, he agreed to wait until I was ready. I was finally ready. I had told him that morning, but he wanted it to be special for me, special for us. So he took me on a date. The restaurant we were at was attacked by rogues and I was captured while rescuing a child the rogue cornered. Even though I was ready before, I don't think I'm ready yet. Once I've got to know more about our past, I will be ready to start a future with him. Later, after I had cleaned the house from top to bottom, I went and cooked food for Simon. Apparently, it was a mate's job to clean the house, cook and take care of any urges, if you get my drift, that their mate has. At first I questioned it. That was nothing like how Ela had described mates. But then I reminded myself, Ela isn't real. Anything she said wasn't real. I trust Simon. He would never lie to me. I placed Simon's meal in front of him, then sat next to him with mine. After so long unconscious, I was still getting used to the rules of the living. I was too used to the rules I made up. Simple stuff I should remember is wrong. Wasn't wrong in my dream, so I do it wrong. Not knowing the proper rules have caused one or two embarrassing moments for me. But Simon is very patient with me, gently reminding me of the rules. Just this morning, when Simon had handed me my clothes to put on, I had added a jumper into the outfit. It wasn't too cold, but my top was quite revealing, and I wasn't comfortable to wear it, even around my mate. I should have known, when my mate gives me clothes, to put them on. I am his mate. I belong to him. I am his. If my mate wants me to wear a skimpy top, I wear it. I belong to my mate. Terrell. Simon yelled from the kitchen. He must have wandered there while I was thinking. You haven't done your washing up. I quickly ran through. It was my job to do all the clearing up, and leaving it could get me punished. That night I in bed content. Nathaniel hadn't been by, so Simon and I had some time to ourselves. I was beginning to remember the rules of the living world. Someone said he'd had a stressful day. I stayed still as he took his dress out on me. His belt burned slightly as it was slashed into my back. It was what he needed, and as his mate it was up to me to stay still and help him feel better. When he asked for a kiss, I gave it to him, whatever he asked. The only things I truly owned was my virginity and my neck. It was up to me when I wanted to be marked. When I wanted to fully give myself to Simon. Everything else, though, I would give it to him. No questions asked. I was lucky to have Simon. He was a good mate. Chapter 32, Simon Terror's POV. I woke up to the sound of laughter. My mate was laughing. That made me smile. I really loved my mate. He was my everything. At least, I thought he was. I was so conflicted. Part of me yells out for Simon, but part of me yells out for Forrest. And the part that yells out for Forrest feels more real. The part of that calls for Simon feels artificial. And yet, if he isn't my mate, the life I've just began to accept as real may not be real. Hey Terror, even my name seemed fake. What's wrong with me? Are you awake? I blinked open my eyes, smiling up at Simon. He smiled back, but something seemed off. My wolf didn't call out to his the way she usually did. Simon. I smiled at his, not liking the way his name sounded on my lips. Something wasn't right. Do we have any plans for today? He thought for a minute before shaking his head. Don't forget to take your pill. Handing it to me. He always made sure I had my pills. He said it was for my own good, and I did always feel better after. Everything seemed clearer. I nodded, smiling before throwing it back. Something didn't feel right. It was like a web in my mind, stopping the truth from getting through, stopping the thoughts from escaping. I needed to get away from here. Nothing was right. I was confused. I needed air. I'm going out. I blurted out, walking to the door. Simon stood in the doorway, a murderous expression on his face that chilled me to the core. Did you ask? Glaring daggers at me, looking at me as if I was below him. My first instinct was to bow my head, act submissive. He was my mate, wasn't he? My wolf howled out to me. She was trying to tell me something, but the thoughts wouldn't form in my mind. I hadn't been able to communicate properly with her since I woke up. Simon said it was because we hadn't communicated at 6 months. But now I thought it might be something more. I hated the way he talked down to me, always talking as if I was dirt on his shoe. Most of the time I passed it off as his right. I was his mate, therefore I was below him. But today something in me thought back. I didn't want to be below my mate. No, I didn't ask. If I want to go outside, I will go outside. I don't belong to you. I didn't belong to him. I was his equal, wasn't I? My emotions were fighting each other. One side said I was right. I was my mate's equal. I only belonged to him as much as he belonged to me. But another part of me said I was his. I belonged to him completely. You do belong to me. You are mine. You don't talk back and you don't do anything without asking me first. You go outside with my permission and my permission only. You belong to me. Don't forget it. Slapping me in the face. I was sick of it. I didn't belong to him. If I wanted to go outside, I would. I ran out the house before he could stop me, jumping into my shift and tearing into the woods. I didn't care where I ran as long as I ran away from Simon. He wasn't my mate. My mate wouldn't treat me like that. I was sure of it. I ran for ages. My wolf enjoyed the freedom. I loved the wind in my fur, the dirt beneath my paws, the smell of the trees as I ran through them. If Simon is lying to me, would that make for a streel? But I saw Forrest. He was called Aaron. He didn't remember me. Was that a trick? Was it real? Maybe I still haven't woken up from a dream. Maybe I'm still in a coma. I was so lost in thought. I didn't see the wolf in front of me until I was nearly on top of him. He was beautiful, a soft brown color, with striking green eyes. The wolf at the top, I recognized him. He was Forrest's wolf. It was Forrest. He wore an ear-splitting grin on his wolfy face and he yipped at me as he bounded around me. But I didn't recognize his scent. I know what my Forrest smelled like. This wolf didn't smell like anything. I nudged the wolf with my head and didn't feel the tingles of the maple. It wasn't Forrest. Forrest wasn't real. Then it hit me. Of course Forrest wasn't real. He was a dream. He didn't exist. Simon's my mate. My one and only. I should get back to him. My wolf howled in defeat as I ran back. She tried to tell me something, but the web around my brain had formed bigger. She couldn't get a message through. I threw myself on my bed. I was so confused. It was Forrest, not Aaron. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I recognized him. Not his scent. But they kidnapped me. Of course they had a way of blocking his scent. I ran away from him. Why did I run away from him? Simon said it was all a dream. It didn't feel like a dream. I was so sure of everything a few minutes ago. In the woods I was so sure I knew who was my mate. I was sure it was Simon. But now I'm leaning in the opposite direction. What changed? It hit me like lightning. The pills. Every time. After I take the pills I am certain man is my mate. The longer it's been since I took a pill, the weaker my resolve is. And it's easier to see the truth. Simon may still be my mate though. So I just stopped taking the pills. I will have a clear mind and I will find the correct answer. Who my mate actually is. I spent the rest of the day cleaning the house. I didn't particularly want to, but it kept my mind of the imminent confrontation, and would appease Simon so he may not mind me not taking my pills. Simon came home really angry. He'd had a stressful day at work and had a very short temper. A ticking time bomb I was almost definitely going to set off. Tyrrell, he called from the kitchen. Come and take your pills. I went through to the kitchen. where Simon had his arm outstretched with a circular pill resting on it. I shook my head. No, I saw his eyes darkened. But I was going to finish what I started. I feel better. I don't need the pills anymore. Simon tried to convince me to take it. You may feel better, but you need to take it. Nathaniel said you need to finish them. So you're fully better. I shook my head. Come on, babe. You need to take the pill. I shook my head again. Tyrrell, take the damn pill. But again I shook my head. Well, I tried the easy way. I guess it's on to the hard way. The hard way works better anyway. He grabbed my arm and pulled me out the house. He dragged me into the woods, never slowing down or stopping when I tripped on tree roots or the uneven ground. We went deep into the woods. I tried to escape, but he was too strong. We went deep into the woods, deeper than I'd ever been before, where the sunlight didn't reach, the deepest part of the woods, where no one goes. Enthusiasm, in the middle of the woods, in between the trees. There stood an abandoned building. It was crumbling and damp. It had no glass in the windows or a door in the frame. Simon pulled me into the building and down some steps. He pulled up a trapdoor and threw me in. I fell down some more steps while Simon closed the trapdoor above me. It was completely dark. I couldn't even see my hands in front of my face. If I closed my eyes, it was lighter than with them open. I couldn't see anything, until one small, faint light bulb spluttered to life. The light it offered was dim and didn't do much, but it was better than complete darkness. I suddenly realized I wasn't alone in this room. I turned around to see Simon, Nathaniel, Tyler, and my dad. I thought they came to get me out of the dark, so I went towards them, but soon stopped when I saw the murderous expressions on their faces. They looked murderous and excited. Nathaniel looked me in the eye. Stay still. His eyes flashed as he spoke. I tried to move, but I couldn't. Don't say a word. Don't make a sound, actually. You can scream. We want to hear you scream. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't make a sound. Now the fun begins. Tyler said, smirking at me. You should have just stayed on the pill. We could have convinced you that way. But now we have to use alternate methods to make you cooperate. I hope you like pain. Simon walked forward, smirking. Soon, you won't even remember your name, let alone your mate. I hope you weren't attached to your old life. I tried to growl at him. I tried to shift and attack him. I tried to escape, but I couldn't move. I was stuck. They all advanced on me, armed with knives, whips, and other torture devices, and the woods surrounding absorbed my screams like a sponge.